Yeah.
All right, we are live. Woohoo! 10:30 on the nose. Thursday morning, 5:28. Well, welcome everybody. We'll wait a few minutes to see who's coming on here. This is Fig Score Network. We are streaming live through Facebook. We are also on our YouTube channel, which is Fig Score Network on both. So please join that way as well. And welcome to everyone who could make it today. It's myself, Jeff Bruno, founder and CEO of Your Outsourced CFO. Very, very, very excited today to spotlight Mark Kesti. Hey, Mark.
Hey, good morning, everybody. Hey, Jeff. Thanks.
Sure, absolutely. And we have a lot to cover today. So I just want to give people a minute or two to get on board, and we will start. So let's see, 10:31, another minute or so. And today, generally what we're going to talk about here is we're going to talk about how to position your business to come out of this major disruption of COVID. What are the financial aspects? What are the marketing and sales aspects? And how do those come together in an effective way for you to position your business back to growth? So I wanted to invite Mark today because Mark is a specialist in the sales and marketing arena, has a lot of good insights. So that's where we're going to begin. So I think we're about almost 2 minutes in, so we can start. So, welcome. Let me begin by saying a brief introduction of myself and our company, and then Mark will jump on board and start. So, Your Outsourced CFO, we help small companies in the range of sort of 1 million up to 25 million in revenue with really their financial strategy on how to help them in the long term with their growth metrics, their growth decisions, bringing clarity and communication to the management of their cash flow and their strategies. And we do this by embedding one of our CFOs as a partner, truly as a partner to the organization to help them along that path and the various milestones they have to do. What we also do is we're very forward thinking. So we are trying to stay ahead of major disruptions like COVID. And when they hit, try to plan aggressively to circle back and get out of them. So that's us. Let me spotlight Mark here. Mark will introduce.
Hey. Yeah, thanks, Jeff. Good morning again, everybody. My name is Mark Kesti, and I'm President and Chief Revenue Officer of Innovo. And to put in a nutshell of what Innovo does, it's fairly straightforward. We work with similar-sized companies that Your Outsourced CFO does with Jeff's firm. However, our focus is exclusively on building and increasing sales, predominantly in the B2B market space, where our clients believe they can get to that next level, are not getting the sales that they believe they should be getting. And we work with those organizations to determine, what is the ideal sales strategy, the ideal sales methodologies, the ideal sales organization, and of course, the sales analytics that go along with that so we can measure how we're doing against those. And one of the unique things about Innovo is that we don't just talk the talk, we walk the walk. So we actually roll up our sleeves and help our clients implement those changes. So in the end, we're here to help companies, particularly in this environment. I'm going to share some stories of existing clients and what we've done to address this current situation. So thank you, Jeff.
Absolutely. So let's jump onto the slides just to start. All right. Your business growth strategies post-COVID. Next slide, please. All right. So I'm going to start it out here with the idea of utilizing unspent PPP dollars for growth. Everyone knows the payroll protection program that has come out. I would say a lot of businesses owners who might be on this call probably have received this money. I hope you have. And what I'm saying about unspent is important here. If your business had some difficulties in COVID and you had to lay off some people, you had to reposition some of your dollars, you had to defer rent, maybe you might not have been able to use all of those dollars. As everyone understands and where the current regulations are, that those PPP dollars are a loan post forgiveness at a 1% loan for 2 years. So the question is, what can we do with those funds? Now, let me be very clear what I mean by those funds. What I mean is you have to use your normal operating dollars or extra dollars to put into other areas of your business to expand and come back to growth. However, as long as your business is still going, you can take the PPP funds will be used for salaries and utilities and rent like before until they're exhausted. But that excess capital you have can be used for trying something new. And that's the emphasis here. And just today, looks like, I think it is today, Thursday specifically, the Senate and House are trying to looking at considering extending forgiveness timeframe to at least 16 weeks. That will help you position even more in this environment. So let's quickly talk about a couple avenues that people are thinking about. And there are many, but let's talk about a couple. So the average loan has been around $100,000 for the small business space from PPP. If you take 25% of that 100,000, so let's say it's about $25,000, what are we going to use that for in your business if you have that money left? Well, you might just need to stabilize cash flows and manage decreases in revenue. You just might need it, period, and you might not have enough available disposable, what I'm calling disposable cash. You might want to look at repositioning for new markets or redesign your sales approach. Those are very important items. And maybe there's even a chance to do a big pivot and structure new revenue streams to be built out during this time period. So I believe this program is a strong program that was put together very quickly, but could be very beneficial for us entrepreneurs who are trying to reposition. So that's what we're going to talk about today, ways to do that. So let me jump in now for the next slide, and Mark will start.
Hey, thanks again, Jeff. And, this is a relatively brief overview of some concepts that we're actually executing with our clients. And the two fundamental areas that we want to focus on is your current go-to market plan and how you really need to adjust it and see if it's still aligned with the markets that you serve. And then some practical and executable suggestions and ideas to actually get sales either back on track or at least not decreasing as much. So next slide, please, Dana. Dana's our marketing guru behind the scenes. So I want to make sure she gets some credit.
Yes, true. Good point.
Yeah. If we look at the reality of what's going on right now, the simple fact is that, the markets have changed. And if you look at the total addressable market for the segments that you're serving, they have in fact decreased just because demand has decreased. And naturally then, if we want to get the same level of sales we got before when the market is bigger, we're simply going to have to increase the number of opportunities in the pipeline. In effect, we're going to need to turbocharge our sales and marketing processes in order to get back to square one right now. And, the other thing that we've seen too is that companies that are focused on, new sales, net new clients, depends on your segment, of course, but in general, if you look at the other two buckets, which is your existing customer base and the competitors' customer base, you're really better off with focusing right now on the existing type of customers and the competitors. And I think we just have to appreciate the fact that our clients and our prospects, they've changed the way they buy, how they buy, when they buy, and we need to likewise adapt our sales processes towards that. I'll give you a quick example. We have a client that's in the manufacturing space. Specifically, they make parts and components for biotech companies that manufacture drugs. And in 2020, the goal was to actually expand and get new clients. And back in January, February 2020, the old days, things were booming and that made a lot of sense. However, the environment has completely changed. So we've pivoted, and we've actually incorporated their customer service organization to actually more proactively inform the customers that are calling in for orders about other products and services that they have. They're basically cross-selling, upselling. Now, don't get me wrong, the customer service group is now not actually selling per se, but it's a touch point and it's an opportunity for them to mention a specific product or service. And if there is interest, if the customer or prospect for that matter says, yeah, that's interesting, send me information, that's immediately punted to the sales folks. So that's one thing to consider, folks. If you can move to the next slide, please, Dana. Great. So some real basic fundamentals for your go-to-market plan. I mean, the first thing you want to do is identify the specific segments that are growing, right? Many companies focus on different segments. I'll give you a quick example. One of the clients we're working with is in 3 segments. They're in the hotel segment, the commercial gym segment, and the apartment building segment. And needless to say, in the hotel and commercial gym segment, they just saw sales drop like a rock when COVID-19 happened. And so, keeping our ears to the wall of what's happening in the marketplace, we found that people at home who wanted to go to the gym but couldn't were now obviously working out at home and buying new higher end equipment for home and dusting off that old equipment that they've kept away, for the past. So looking at their marketing approach, they kind of shifted more towards Google AdWords, towards the B2C market. And yes, in fact, we didn't see sales just drive right up immediately, no, but we did see that drop start to certainly level off, and hopefully in time we're going to start to see it start climbing back up. The other area is competitors, right? I got another client that is in the medical device kind of manufacturing, contract manufacturing space, and because they're critical, in the supply chain, they're continuing to operate. And what we heard is that some of the competitors in our space, in that space, were struggling with supply chain. So hearing that, we saw an opportunity, and we pivoted towards going after those competitive accounts. Now, we didn't rub it in those customers' noses that their current vendor wasn't able to supply the products, but we did simply let them know that we were operating, that our supply chains were under control. And as a result of doing that, and these are longer-term sales processes, we've actually, as of yesterday, have increased the pipeline of requests for quotes by about $5 million. Looking at your planning, we got to change the processes that you're currently using, and what resources we might need to kind of affect these changes. And then lastly, how do we execute that? And that's where, again, I mentioned customer service. That's an option that people should consider. And the other one that folks should look at, and one of the examples in kind of classic example are SaaS companies, software companies. They have been very successful at the business development rep model, right? The inside sales type person. And basically, in that model, the inside sales rep or business development rep, their sole function is to take some raw leads, emails, names, and phone numbers of the ideal client profile that meets, that target market, and to frankly start, calling on them with a very organized sales prospecting cadence. And once that interest is generated from that prospect, the ball is then punted to sales. And there's a few benefits to that. One, and please, sales reps out there, don't get nervous. I am myself one and have been, sales and sales leader for quite a few years. But your outside sales reps tend to be much more expensive. They're more valuable than other resources at times. and you might be able to reduce the number of those folks, which could help from a financial standpoint. The other piece is that you should see your sales cycle times decrease. And the reason being is simply because those professional sales folks that are typically outside sales folks now are not engaged as much with actually generating interest. That inside sales group is focused on that. So Dana, could you switch that next slide? Great. Let's look at yesterday for a minute, and the typical B2B company in their sales and marketing approach was emails, phone calls, and then, of course, the face-to-face meeting. And we all know that face-to-face meetings now, and very likely in the foreseeable future, are just not happening. They're certainly going to be happening less. And, the reality is, too, if you look at your previous sales process and the different methods incorporated there, how effective really was it, right? I mean, as far as face-to-face meetings as a metric, how many actual face-to-face meetings were happening on a regular basis with qualified opportunities, existing customers, and prospects? And for most small to mid-sized companies, they typically don't have that answer. And you ask them why, and it's because that's how we did it before, right? So we're doing it the same way now. And that reality has to change. And just as a little side point as far as stats, according to HubSpot, which is a marketing automation tool and CRM, they looked at their 70,000 clients, who are tracking all of their activity in real time. And when the COVID-19 pandemic hit, they saw a tremendous increase in outbound emails, just boom, real high. But the interesting thing is they saw the actual response rates decrease. So there was more email. We're getting inundated as customers and prospects with emails. I know I am, The other interesting thing is what they saw actually phone calls as a prospecting tool decrease. And they haven't actually gotten back up to where they were before. So what was working in the past isn't working now. So one of the things that we're working with our clients do, and Dana, if you wouldn't mind, just go to that next slide, is incorporating a more effective, more scalable, more measurable, more repeatable sales prospecting cadence, really, that incorporates marketing as well as sales. And by the way, in this environment, it is critical that marketing and sales are integrated. They have to be in lockstep. They both are there to help drive revenue, and they need to be on the same page. That's first and foremost. But if you look at more closely integrating those two, the different options that you have, of course, are the customer service we talked about, inside sales. But in a prospecting sales cadence, we would basically create the email templates in your CRM. And if you don't have a CRM, I suggest you get one. They're not expensive. In fact, some are free. And there's some really good stuff out there that's simple, and I like simple myself. And using that tool along with Zoom and other social media, we can have a prospecting cadence that goes after these leads that we have and to generate interest on a much more predictable way, and we'll build that pipeline. So, just a quick story too. We have one of the clients we have is an East Coast-based staffing agency, and that's a tough business. It's a tough B2B business, and we obviously wanted to ramp up sales for those folks, and we incorporated a sales prospecting cadence that was automated, that mapped into the CRM, that we could track, results and tweak things as they develop to maximize outcomes. And within 90 days, that company, it's a relatively small company, about 12 million in top line, they were able to capture 4.1 million in net new revenue from using, a sales prospecting cadence. So the point is that take a hard look at your current go-to market strategy. Is it aligned with the new reality? Two, once you have that better figured out, then create a sales process and methodology that integrates marketing and sales to take advantage of that. So hopefully that's helpful. And of course, Jeff and I are here to address some questions that you might have, and we'd love to hear from you. And I'm going to pass the ball back to you, Jeff.
Oh, great. Thank you, Mark. Dana, what's the next slide? Let's check that if you would. Great. So before I dive into that slide, I want to say that as Mark brings up these stories and things, I mean, the 35 to 40 clients that we've been working with as your outsourced CFO, we're seeing this across the board. We're seeing them, throw stuff out of the wall and see what sticks almost, and deciding what makes sense from a sales and marketing side. But what Mark brings up is real important, is make sure you're putting a methodology there together and tracking it. That's one thing I want to emphasize big time here, is tracking. Because if you don't track, you don't have the right financial information tied to that tracking on where your dollars are going and what you're doing, then you're just going to be throwing money away potentially. So, sorry, Mark, did you want to say something?
I was going to say, Jeff, that's a great point in all of those different approaches, right? And it's not a one size fits all, as you know. Every business is unique. However, when you look at those options, the ROI has to be calibrated, right? Because we have to be an asset, to the organization. And we have to be very careful, particularly now, not that it ever really wasn't important, but particularly now, extremely sensitive to costs. So it's gotta generate a return, or it just doesn't make sense.
Yeah, really. And this is an example. So it's a good segue to the financial example here that I want to bring back. So to everything you're talking about, and, to using some of the potentially the monies that people have from loan dollars here, I want to talk about one aspect of hiring a salesperson. So Mark mentioned different markets, different ways to attack revenue, outside salesperson versus an inside salesperson. This could be an inside salesperson, an outside salesperson. This could be an internal marketing person. I'm just highlighting an example. So, and I want to talk some specific financial information here to help you with this. So the way PPP is structured is that you have to get back to the full-time equivalents to get your full forgiveness. Let me be very clear with that. If you got $100,000 and you spent $96,000, as this example shows, okay? In order to get that full $96,000 forgiven, you need to be at eight employees of where you were, 8 full-time equivalent employees. If your business does not demand that, getting there, then maybe of your former employees, maybe hiring new. This is what Mark and I are really emphasizing here is you want to think strategically, especially if the government extends this another couple months for forgiveness. Let's think real strategically here about how we can do this. Government wants you to hire people. So bring in a salesperson, bring in an internal salesperson. Let me give you an example of what this does for your business in saving you dollars. Again, 100,000 right here, 8 people. Right now you have 7. Smaller business, okay? 4 weeks of payroll for a new hire is $4,000. This is this assumption. So you've gone from using $92,000 to $96,000 over the next month of the PPP. Here's your example. You're going to save 13%, which is 1 more person out of 8. So if you get back to that 8 threshold, you're going to save 13% because that's what would have come off of your forgiveness. That's the calculation. So in reality, you're saving $12,000 of those loan funds by being forgiven and spending that on your business to get moving. So these are examples of attacking new markets, pivoting in real time, trying to generate new revenue, and are really, really important, which is what, again, we're emphasizing here. Don't sit back. Don't wait. Be entrepreneur. Be aggressive. Go after it and try to reposition yourself. Even if it's hiring a specialist who could streamline your operation. Maybe it's a new machinist or a new engineer in your manufacturing division. that can streamline your stuff and get you a return on your scenario, then do that. So that's what we're emphasizing. Someone asked earlier from a question. I want to just answer these questions real fast before we get on to the next slide. Someone asked a question: is there a chance PPP funds can be used for this forgiveness for this type of thing? Or what I was talking about in the first slide. I want to be extremely clear here. This is where the government is very clear. You have to certify that those funds you're using, any remaining funds, are used for payroll, rent, so on and so on. And those ratios, 75-25. That's where the law stands right now. You have to certify that, track it, and submit it to the government, to your bank, who then submits to the government for forgiveness at the end of the period. So you can't just say, I'm going to close shop. I have $50,000 left. I'm going to Vegas for a month. Or I'm going to go bartend in Mexico. That's not going to work. You have to have your business running, use it for those items. Other revenue you have coming in or profits, you can use in other ways. There's no restriction. So I hope that's clear. So let's move on to the next slide, Dana. Okay, one other brief example. And wait, before we start, any quick questions, Dana, that we have, or Mark, anything you wanted to share about that person?
Yeah, I mean, you point out we have a client that's in manufacturing. We have several, but this one in particular, they did in fact
go back one.
Actually, I'm sorry. They did in fact hire a resource to streamline operations. Right, they took advantage of that opportunity and got an additional engineering resources that is there to simply do that, to drive out costs in their manufacturing process. So,
Dana,
great point.
Dana, can you pull the slides back up? You're on your other screen, it looks like. Thank you. Go to the last slide. Thank you, Mark. Yep, nope. Boost marketing spend. One back. One back, Dana. Thank you. So one last thing I want to touch on before we finish here at least on the financial side, is boosting marketing spending. It's another avenue that I'm talking about here versus the salesperson per se. So you can spend your extra money. Let's say, and I'm going to fly through this really quick here, but let's say you had $40,000 left at the end. You needed 20 of that to keep your business afloat. Wait, Dana, you need to go back to the slide. Sorry. You need 20,000 of that to keep your business afloat. And you have 20,000 of extra discretionary dollars. What if you can get marketing return 6-1 on that? What if over 6 months that 20,000 got you 120,000 in return here? This is what we need to think about. At a 50% GP, that's $60,000 to your business. So you spend 20 for 60. That's a 200% return on your money. That's where we have to be to position our companies to come out of this. So it's very hard for Mark and I on a quick 30-minute kind of presentation to get too specific on the tactics and things of that nature that really help you. I wanted to give you a couple examples. Mark gave you some great stories and a couple things. You can go to the last slide, Dana. And a couple scenarios that have helped businesses think through this. But it's really about what Mark said in the beginning. Both of our companies, we embed ourselves in your process. We help you implement both financial and marketing. We're not just there handing you paperwork and saying, this is how you do it. We're helping you move forward. So, Mark, any closing words on that?
Well, to your point, Jeff, the clients that we serve, in the small, medium-sized market, which, by the way, again, are B2B in particular, they know they have an issue, right? They know they have a problem they need to solve, and as it relates to, our area, it's driving top-line sales, and they may even know what the answer is. The issue that they have is they just simply don't have the resources or the time to actually make it happen. And I think, with your model, which is why I love, working with you and your team, we have the same mindset, right? We're an extension of those companies that we serve. We actually do the work that anyone else might just recommend. We actually get it done.
Yep.
And that's our approach, and it's made sense. And hopefully, folks get some value, a couple ideas, suggestions, and I know you're there. You can see my contact information. More than happy to get on the phone and talk shop or go over a question or concern that you might have. My background has been in sales and sales leadership for more than 25 years. I can't say 30 years. It just is too long, even though it's been 30 years. but it's more than 25. And the School of Hard Knocks has taught me many important lessons that hopefully I can help our clients avoid making.
Yes. And just to reiterate, we empower the teams that we work with, so we improve them. There's nothing proprietary that we're doing here that, we can't impart that knowledge onto the teams to help them succeed. In our world, it's the controllers and the bookkeepers and the CEO. In Mark's world, it's the salespeople and the CEO and the marketing. So that's what we do. We're here. We're just virtual. But so when this all settles down too, we should all get together and grab some drinks. So with that, there's our information at the bottom here. I don't think there are any questions. So I hope this was somewhat helpful, at least to get you thinking about how to approach stuff. And then when you're, late night relaxing, you can think of some ideas, pick up the phone, call us, call anybody, call your friends, but start acting. Time is now. And hope this was helpful for everyone. Have a good day, and we'll see you soon. Thanks.
Everybody.
Bye-bye.